Good afternoon everyone, it's another glorious day. It's absolutely boiling inside this shed. It'll be interesting to see if my camera behaves today or whether it's going to overheat. If it does, I think I'm going to have to perhaps invest in a new one, which I don't really want to do, but I can't really continue filming in 15-minute stints and then giving the camera an hour to cool down, so we'll see how we go. Last time you saw me cut the side profile of my neck and also rough shape the tenon. I think today I'm going to try planing down my fretboard to the final neck width and trying to get that glued on to the neck blank, and we'll see what we're left with. Hopefully we'll have time to get all that done today. Let's crack on. So if you recall, last time I put some dust and glue on the end to fill up this fret slot. Just want to tidy that up a little bit before we go any further. I think that'll do for now. Bear in mind we're going to radius over the top of that anyway. So we need to start marking a few things out. So again, I'm just going to rely on the masking tape to give us a surface that's easy to draw on. So as always, first comes the centre line. And from there, what I'm actually going to do, just cut the tape where the nut's going to sit. Place my nut upon it. This will mark the little shelf or step that I intend on leaving on the end of the fretboard. If I don't like it, I can always chisel it off. But there's no harm in leaving it for now. Okay. That would be our nut width. So it looks like I'm going to be taking 6mm off at the nut end. Now, this end of the fretboard should in theory be 57mm, but I only have about 55, 56, so there's not actually enough material there, which means I'm going to have to put banding on the outside, which was what I intended anyway. There we go. Should probably Just improve the visibility of that line. Picked up the bad masking tape by accident, never mind. So I'm just going to use the fretting saw to mark where I want to cut that. So I'm kind of between workbenches at the moment, i.e. I don't actually have a workbench, or at least I don't have a workbench with a vise. So I've resorted to old tricks again and effectively used clamps to clamp the fretboard to the side of the bench. I'm then going to run my plane along the top of the fretboard, keeping it parallel to the edge of the bench, which should get me a nice clean cut. I'm not very good with a plane, but when you're working on a nice thin piece of dense material like an ebony fretboard, it's probably actually one of the easier jobs to do based on past experience. Say that side is done. Now the problem we have here is I don't have an outside edge of a bench available that I can clamp to where I can actually easily see the side that I've marked. So I'm just going to have to keep checking and take it easy. Definitely tell it's time to stop there because I'm grazing the side of the tape with the plane. As I said, I'm intending to band the fretboard, so I'm really not afraid to go a little bit too thin. So there we have it. I've just checked both of the edges with a straight edge and they're pretty damn straight. I wouldn't say they're 100%. I think it's a little bit prominent on the ends where I've avoided planing it thin, but it feels smooth. Running my hand up and down the edge of it there, I don't detect any dips in or out. Feels comfortable, so I think we're okay. You can see how much thinner that is now. We're almost ready for gluing, but at the moment this surface, it looks like it's either been through a bandsaw or a planer thicknesser, and it's quite ridged. It is pretty flat, but it's not smooth enough for gluing. So I'm just going to give that a going over with some sandpaper to get that smoothed out. Next thing I want to do is take this scalpel and just actually remove the masking tape, just leaving enough to cover the truss rod, which also has our centre line still drawn upon it. And despite my best efforts, that was the camera overheating again. To be fair, it's probably lasted about 2 hours in the warmth. Thankfully this edge is already pretty smooth, but again I think I'll just take the fine sandpaper, give it a quick going over. Won't be able to do too much obviously because I've got that masking tape on there. Just going to use the masking tape as a kind of rudimentary tack cloth just to get rid of any dust. See, it's picking up a little bit there. The only thing to note at this point is that the rough cut I did for the tenon is actually standing slightly proud of where the limits of the fretboard currently are. But I think what I'm actually planning to do is use the fretboard as a template to run the router along the edge of the neck blank there anyway. So in theory, if I go right up to this point, I can get that flush and then I can work the tenon to match up to it if I need to. It's going to be a little bit fiddly, a little bit fraught with risk, but I think we'll get something usable out of it. But I'm keen to go ahead and get this glued for now. So I have discovered a slight problem. Just while sizing up there, I've realised that there's a slight wobble on the fretboard. Not loads, and to be fair, if I was binding the edge of the fretboard anyway, it would cover up any small gap, but you still don't really want one. That's no good at all. I've just ran the plane over the back of the piece of ebony to make sure it's straight, and it's pretty damn close. If I put it down on the desk and try and wobble it, there's a little bit of movement, not a lot. However, there's definitely a lot more wobble with this neck blank. So I think it's slightly twisted, and to be fair, that's why we cut it and let it rest for a little bit. But there's no avoiding that I'm going to have to try and run a plane over the top of that, which I really don't want to do. But I don't think it can be helped. One thing I should be doing actually, supporting underneath, which I'm not. There we go. The lengths I'm having to go to just to clamp stuff down because I don't have a proper workbench will probably be planning on either purchasing one, probably second hand, or making one at some point. I know there's a lot of luthiers watch my videos. If anyone does have any recommendations on things I should or should not look out for in a bench, by all means leave a comment below. Well, at least those saw marks are gone now. Has that made things better or worse? I think that's 10 times better than it was. As you can see, the techniques I'm using to plane this thing are absolutely appalling really, so I don't think I'm going to get much better. That feels pretty good to me. Is it perfect? No, I'm not sure, but it's the closest I've felt it. And I don't think my skills and the terrible planing techniques I'm using here are going to get it 100%. I think I'm going to have to leave it at that. Quick sand once more. The ebony's lovely and smooth, but this stuff comes up pretty rough. Okay, so that was just the camera overheating again. So while it was cooling down, just recut that piece of masking tape, and we've got the offcut supporting the neck on top. I did consider using polyurethane glue, but just in case, we'll go with the traditional wood glue. I mean, to be fair, if I tried to prise a fretboard off of this neck blank, I think it would just tear all the grain out and be unusable anyway. Try and clean some of that off. It's very warm in here. The glue is a lot runnier than it would normally be. My kingdom for a cloth. Something tells me this might slip just a bit during clamping. But I'd rather have a little bit too much than too little. Clamp time on that's only 45 minutes, and it is a lovely hot day, so I think we should take a break for tea, come back in about 2 hours. I think we'll be able to unclamp that. So it's been about 2 hours. Should be safe to take the clamps off now. Most people would generally leave them overnight, but given how hot it is, I'm willing to trust that if the tub on the glue says 45 minutes, a couple of hours in this heat should be fine. Uh-oh. Yeah, that was that little bit of spill from before. Okay, so what have we got here? So the good news, and the bad news. The good news is I think I've succeeded in getting the fretboard glued on exactly where I want it, bang on centre. The bad news is the mating, if that's the best word to use. The mating between the fretboard and the neck is not fantastic. I think just unfortunately the back of the fretboard is maybe not being quite as flat as it should have been. So you can see a slight gap in places. Possibly too much glue as well. Not sure. I don't really have a lot of choice though, other than to proceed. I don't really fancy my chances at taking the fretboard off and then sort of trying to clean it up and go again. I don't think I'll do any better a job a second time round. I think given that I'm going to be doing banding or binding on the edge of the fretboard, it will mask if there's any tiny little gap there. It just really depends whether the fretboard has a strong enough grip on the neck. I suspect it does. There's plenty of surface area there. And if it started coming off or something of its own accord, well, to be honest with you, I'd much rather fix that than trying to fix this. So yeah, as expected, not perfect, but hopefully should be usable. So there we have it. A slightly disappointing end result. I mean, I say disappointing, it's still okay. I just always look at these things from the point of, well, if I was going into a shop and I saw a guitar and I saw this on a guitar, I would think it's badly made. And if I saw a gap between the fretboard and the edge of the fretboard and the side of the neck, I mean, obviously I think that's a badly made guitar. But we've got to expect these kind of things when we do it for the first time. What I'll probably do next time is I will radius the fretboard, and we'll probably look at setting the router table up to take off the excess off the side of the neck. What I might be able to do is feed in some really thin super glue into the side of the neck there, just to try and help make sure it's stable. We're not actually going to be able to see that anyway, because I do plan to rebate route along the edge of the fretboard and put some binding along there anyway. So as long as I make sure the binding's right up against the edge of the fretboard, then it's not going to make any difference anyway. It was just really from a quality perspective of making sure there's a good bond between the neck blank and the fretboard. But not to worry. I have noticed after clamping as well, I don't know whether it's just because of the way I clamped it or what, I think there is a slight forward bow in the fretboard at the moment. So I'll have to decide how I'm going to deal with straightening that out, whether I just do it as part of the radiusing process or part of or maybe if I plane it beforehand, or I don't know. But yeah, like I said, it's always a little bit disappointing not to get a perfect result, but in truth it's actually going to be perfectly fine, and I look forward to taking it a little bit further. Until next time, goodbye.